What's up, tube amp nerds? It's P. Thorne. Welcome to the studio. Hey, today we're going to take a look at this FRIEDMAN PLEX 50-watt amplifier. Now, this is an amplifier that Dave designed to be as close in tone and feel to his beloved 1968 Marshall Plexi 50-watt amplifier as he could possibly get it. That's an amp that I know really well. When I go into Dave's shop, it's been there for years. You hear him playing through it quite a bit when you go in, and it's just a really, really nice benchmark example of that great era of those Plexi amplifiers. That's always a tone that I've loved. It's a benchmark tone for me. I feel like it responds to, first of all, your playing technique, but also to different guitars and pickup changes. I mean, they're just so dynamic and fun to play to. I love the way they overdrive. And of course, those amps were used on just countless recordings and live shows with all of our favorite rock bands. So he did a really, really great job with this one. I know he put it on an amp switcher with his original and went back and forth until he got it as close in tone and feel as he possibly could. So you can get all those great late 60s, tones out of this amp. But it's not just a straight up vintage style example. There's a couple really nice modern features that he put on it that make it much more versatile. So number one, the inputs are linked. So you'll notice on this amplifier, there's just two inputs. You don't need the four because, a lot of people use a jumper to blend the two channels together on that type of amplifier. On this one, they're internally jumpered with no gain loss, so you can blend the channels to your heart's content. Turn up volume 1, volume 2 to whatever level you want. Get different levels of cut and fat. Also on each channel, you get a bright switch. On the old amplifiers, on the volume 1 volume pot, there was generally a bright cap soldered permanently on that pot. That's something that people would sometimes change the value of or sometimes take out altogether because it changes the sound pretty radically. Well, on this amp, on that volume 1, you've got the option of a switch there, so you can literally take it out of line completely, the bright, or you've got two different bright values. On volume 2, though, you also get that option. There was never a bright on the volume 2 volume control. Now you've got the ability to switch in that bright, and it's really cool because for those that know those old amplifiers well, you'll know that volume 2 is a pretty dark and woolly kind of affair. If you hit it with pedals, it could be really cool, but just plugging into it, kind of an uninspiring dark tone, generally speaking. So the bright on that channel actually opens it right up. You can get nice, fat, but sparkly clean sounds out of just that channel now on this amplifier. So it's really cool. So we're going to look at that. I'm going to plug my Strat in a little bit and show you how you can get some really neat sounds out of that channel by incorporating the bright, by blending the two channels together, all that good stuff. There's also a post-phase inverter master volume right on the front of the amplifier, so that allows you to kind of dull the roar down to a dull roar, or maybe take the amp all the way down to bedroom volume, and it does quite a good job of keeping the tone and the feel all intact. So I'll show you that. You also get a two-way power switch here that allows you to go, well, in the center, it's three-way really. In the center, it's off. All the way up is high voltage, all the way down is low voltage, and that's, you guessed it, a Variac style power transformer. So you can go anywhere from 120 volts down to 90 volts and get the kind of squish and a little bit of that haze in the tone, a little bit lower volume, a la Van Halen. So that's a nice option as well. Other than that, pretty much a straight up vintage affair. There's no effect loop or anything like that on the back. It's just speaker jacks to plug into your various types of cabinets. Now, I'm going to address the loop thing because sometimes people are like, "Dude, we didn't put a loop in. I really want a loop." And I get that, the desire for an effect loop. But in an amplifier like this, effects loops just don't work well. The reason is because the gain in the amplifier, the distortion character, is kind of generated in a linear fashion throughout the amplifier. And that means part of the tone, part of the inherent great thing that we love about these is that when you turn them up, the phase inverter of the amplifier is something that's distorting. Now, an effect loop in an amp like this would have to come pre-phase inverter. The phase inverter is part of the power amplifier, technically. And so you insert some effects in there. It's kind of a compromise tonally because what you're going to do is send those effects into that phase inverter that's going to be distorting. Now your effects get all blown up and sound dirty anyway, kind of like when they're plugged into the front of the amplifier. So loops just really don't work well in this style of amp. It's a compromise in tone, the effects don't end up sounding great. So there's other ways to go about adding effects to an amp like this. You either plug them in the front or, use a line out box on the output. There's other ways to do it. But just know that adding a loop is always a compromise, and it's not something that I feel and most amp designers that, make amps like this feel should be included in an amp like this. Okay, so let's get on to some playing and sound examples. Here we go. It's the FRIEDMAN PLEX 50-watt tube amp. So the first thing I recorded in that song at the beginning of the video is, as you would guess, the first guitar part. And for this, I'm kind of doing the Van Halen thing. I've got the volume 1 all the way on 10. Now I've got the bright switch in the middle. It's off, but it wouldn't matter if it was in any of the other positions because when you've got it on 10, the bright cap is not effective. It's essentially the bright cap only works when you've got the volume anywhere below 9 or 8 or so. So just to prove, I'm flipping it there and you won't hear any difference. You know, if I brought the volume down to 6, now you can hear it when I switch it in. Volume 1's on 10. Volume 2 I've got blended in just a little bit, and I've got the bright cap off on that because I'm just going for adding a bit more thickness with that channel. So it sounds like this when I'm blending it in. And I've just got it up there on about like 9 o'clock, right where you start to hear it. The treble's on 8. Mids are on 10, the bass is on 10, the presence is on 6.5. I just liked it a little bit better for this sound with the presence down a little bit. So yeah, presence on 6.5, something like that. And that's the idea. So I am not actually using the variac mode on this. It just sounded a little bit punchier when I'm doing all those palm mute to not do the variac thing. But if I switch it in, it's really easy. You'll hear the difference. Just gets a little creamier, you know, you hear the volume drop a little bit, that's for sure. Probably, you know, 3-4 dB, something like that, because the amp's probably only making about, I don't know, 25, 30 watts or something like that once you kick the voltage down. Let's bring it back up to full power. And now I'm going to try and drop the master down, and let's hear what that does when it starts to kick in. So, you know, definitely really effective at reducing the volume and keeping the tone and the feels the same. You know, it sounds really good. Okay, so now I just cut some rhythm guitars in the track at the beginning of the video, the part that goes. So for this sound, I'm on a more typical kind of, you know, 70s Marshall setting, I guess. I've got the big bright cap switched in. I got the volume on about 6.5 or, you know, 230. The treble's on about 1:30 or 2 o'clock. Middle's cranked up just above 8. The bass is on about half. The presence is on about half. Master's all the way up, and I'm in the full power mode. And this just sounds great for... gutsy rock tone, you know what I'm saying? It sounds really great. If I want, I've got a little bit of the normal channel mixed in too. I've got and I've got the bright cap, which is unique because you can't even do that really with a Marshall unless you modify it. So I got the 100 PF bright cap on the normal channel. Let me just turn off the main gain control, the volume 1. So that's the sound that I'm blending in on the normal channel. Just kind of a nice sound. It's if I turn off the bright, it'll be really dark. But you mix in that bright, and it starts to sound, you know, like shades of, I don't know, super bass or something like that. So this channel could be really great with pedals, I think. I'm not really doing that in this video, but then when you blend in the volume 1 control, you get the full Monty rock and roll. You can hear right when I bring it out, I'm using the big bright cap, so it's because you know when it's down around 1, you got all that high end bleeding through. But as I turn it up, the sound mixes in, all the bass and everything sounds great. Sounds just killer. So let's turn the master down to about 4. See what that sounds like. Maybe even lower. Now, you might find that when the volume gets down this low, maybe you're like, oh, it's a little bright for me. So then I can switch out the bright maybe on the normal channel, or maybe the bright on the other channel. Maybe I'll go to the 100 PF bright instead of the big bright on the volume 1. Let's see what it sounds like if I just play around. So one thing I wanted to show on this amp is the range of kind of usable clean sounds that are available. Volume 2 on this amplifier has a bright switch on it. That's not something that a normal Marshall, Super Leader 1987 style amp has on it. And I want to show you how much it sort of opens up the possibilities, because it is a really neat feature, I think. So if I just have the kind of standard Marshall thing going right now, and I turn up volume 2 a little bit, this would be the normal sound of this channel. Okay, so it would sound something like that, kind of dark and not super usable. You could hit it with pedals and it might be cool. But switch in the bright cap. So I'll put in the 100 PF bright cap right now. And all of a sudden you get a really nice, usable, super sparkly clean. So this opens up all kinds of possibilities. Once again, volume 1 is not on at all right now. And it sounds like this with volume 2 just up to 2. Now you've also got the option of the lower gain input if you want even more headroom. You can hear the volume drop a little bit, but then you can turn up the gain a little bit. It's all a balancing act. So I'll put it back in the high mode. Now, if I turn the bright switch or flip the bright switch over to the all the way right position, it's going to be a lot more gain. That could also be a cool sound, though. It might be something that you like. It's a fatter channel than volume 1. And now with the a big old bright cap on it, you bring it up to 2 or 3, and it's actually got kind of a usable sound. It's a different thing. I really tend to like this 100 picofarad bright cap position, which is the bright all the way to the left. Now I could bring in volume 1, and let's see what happens when I do that. It's quite bright, but I'm going to bring the treble back to, let's bring the treble back to 5. Let's turn the mids down a little bit, which, that'll drop the gain. I'm going to bring the bass up a hair, bring the presence back. Now that's a pretty cool tone right there. tri-amps. I play a lot of chords and like cowboy chords and just listen to the notes ring. You know, it's not about shredding to me. It's about like hearing the decay of the notes and stuff. Okay, but my point being, just with the bright switches and stuff, and now that channel 1, you got a whole range of usable cleans in there. If I was to add some compression and delay and reverb and stuff to this, the sounds could get really interesting. Let me bring volume 1 all the way down again. Let's just hear volume 2. See, now as you bring volume 2 up and more bass gets mixed in on that channel, it starts to get a little dark, even with single coils, I think. So now I might need to change the tone controls. But a whole range of usable kind of clean stuff in there for sure. Now, one thing to note is that the EQ in these amps is lossy. So if you turn down the mids and the presence and the treble and stuff, you'll also notice that the sound cleans up a little, I think. Let's check it out. You hear, as soon as I turn down the mid-range, you hear the gain apparently drop. That's what I'm talking about. So if you want to get the cleanest sounds, you know, let's bring the treble back to 4, mids down to like 2, bass down a little. We'll turn the presence down a hair. What's that sound like? So I just cut the solo in the song at the beginning of the video, and for this, I boosted with something. It's a Boss BP1W Wazacraft booster preamp, and I'm using like the tape echo booster in it. So it's kind of like, sort of like if you're boosting with the Space Echo or with a PLEX. You know, that little bit of boost you get, that little lift you get out of the preamp of a device like that. And the reason I decided to try boosting with something is because I heard Rabea was doing it in his video. Dave Friedman told me that Rabea used a tube screamer for part of his video to show how, I mean, it's going to be a common thing. People are going to hit the amp with a boost, right? So I thought, well, I'm going to do it too then. So here's the sound without the boost that I used for the solo. If I turn on the booster, you know, just super fun having that in front of the amp. But it doesn't need it either, especially not with this guitar. This guitar has a hotter pickup in it than what you usually hear me play. Okay, I'll turn off the Boss booster preamp. I tried putting my guitar in parallel earlier with this tone. It sounds killer. All stringy and stuff. Like, in a way, it's cooler without the boost, because you get all the stringy, and it's not as saturated. You hear more of the string tone, which is a great thing about this style of amp. They really show off pickup changes. I mean, listen to... And once again, that's my bridge pickup in parallel. I love that stringy kind of, you know, when you play single coil strum, you can definitely tell we're a parallel, you know, humbucker or split humbucker. And then I'll put the humbucker back in series. Right away, it just starts sounding more like Van Halen or whatever. But it just sounded really cool in that burn riff. And I haven't even really been talking about, in this part of the video, how I've got the amp set. This is kind of an all-on-10 thing. I mean, I've got the volume cranked on volume 1. I got volume 2 up just about at 9 o'clock, so it's just up a little bit, a quarter of the way. Middle is cranked, treble's on 8, the bass is on 4. Just Y for the solo, have it all the way open, didn't really need it. Presence is on 8, master's on 10. Let's turn the master down a bit. Thanks for watching my video on the FRIEDMAN PLEX 50-watt tube amp. Just a great recreation of those old late 60s plexi tones with a couple new modern features and twists that add to the fun. There's links down in the video description below. You can click down there for more info on this amplifier. And hey, also please hit subscribe and hit the bell beside the subscribe if you're not subscribed to my channel. Come back and see me for more videos like this real soon. Thanks for watching, you guys. I'm Pete Thorne. Take care. Over and out.